Dits on Wrestling.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dits on Wrestling podcast. This is episode 2, which means last week was not a one-off. Episode 1's in the bag, we're rolling on to number 2, and we got a busy week this week. Not only have we got all the news, so there's more news this week than there was last week, and quite an amusing rumour. We also covered Raw and Smackdown last week, but didn't cover NXT. I've righted that wrong this week. So you're going to have all the highlights of those 3 shows, as well as some opinions and questions from you guys. Didn't have any last week, but this week we've already evolved from episode 1 to episode 2. It's a growing podcast. How about that? So we've got some questions, got some thoughts and opinions on Raw. Didn't get any for SmackDown, but I think people were just happy with SmackDown as a whole, which is why they don't feel the need to comment on it. Maybe. I don't know. Nothing on NXT because I actually only just watched that today, so I didn't throw any questions out or ask for anything for that. But there has certainly been some interesting stuff coming in, and I will answer all of it. So if you were nice enough to throw something at me, you're going to be on the show. So congratulations to you. Now, as ever, you can catch me on Twitter at Dits on Wrestling. That is my home. That is where I do most of my interaction with all you guys, and that is where most of my opinions land, unless they land on this podcast, which is now my new platform for annoying the hell out of all you nice people. It's also my handle for Instagram at Dits on Wrestling. You'll get some backstage pictures there, so you'll kind of see the inner workings of the podcast as it grows. At the moment, you're just getting a picture of the microphone and my Stone Cold Steve Austin desk light, which I got from WWE shop. I'm probably not going to get any money for that plug, sadly, but there you go. And that's it. That's all you're getting on Instagram at the moment, but eventually that'll evolve. Maybe I'll put my face in there one day. Because everybody wants that. Of course they do. I don't do Facebook. I don't do it. I gave that up about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. It annoys me. Don't do it. So that's where you can catch me on social media, Twitter and Instagram. With regards to the podcast, you can catch me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and my own YouTube channel. Eventually that'll grow. I'm hearing there's more to life in podcasts outside of iTunes and Spotify. It's news to me. Stitcher, Podbean, iHeartRadio, that's a new one I didn't even know existed until a couple of days ago. Eventually, we'll get on all of that. So I can literally attack you in the ears from wherever I wish. You'll be happy to know as well this week that I'm recording this at a much more sensible time. And you've probably already gathered that now because I actually have a little bit of enthusiasm in my voice. It's not just monotonous tones and vague whispers of wrestling and everybody's interested in what I have to say because I have one singular tone to my voice. Nope, that's gone. Enthusiasm, I can be as loud as I want. Everybody's awake, so boom, enthusiasm. That's what everybody wants. One last thing before we crack on to the news as well. My number one fan is my lovely wife, who supports the hell out of this podcast. Like, if I'm guaranteed to have one listener every week, it's going to be her. Whether it's a pity listen, I don't know. But she's very supportive, bless her. And it was her birthday this week, so I want to say a nice little happy birthday to her, even though it was a couple of days ago. But happy birthday to her. And everybody just send her your birthday wishes. Right, we have a lot of news to cover, so let's head on down to that news desk and let's get it started. Here we go. I really need to think of a better segue into this than DOW news. But there you go. So we're going to retread some old ground here and just go over some stuff from last week, because there's been additions to the news I dropped last week. And we'll start with Luke Harper. Last week, he posted on social media his request for a release from WWE. Up until today, which is Thursday, he hadn't heard anything, and nor had we, about his release. He was as cryptic as ever on social media with his whole, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know what that means. That still happens. But today, it turns out that WWE have refused to grant him that release and gone a step further and added a further 6 months onto his contract, which seems odd. Maybe a little bit petty. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like normal to me to do that to somebody. I think what Luke Harper was aiming at when he asked for the release was kind of what Ty Dillinger did. He put it all out on social media, and I think within a couple of days he was gone. They granted the release and away he went. But maybe they value Luke Harper a little bit more than that. They want him to stick around. Maybe they're just putting their foot down, keeping him attached to the company so he can't go anywhere else, and kind of using that as ammunition to anybody else who wants to try and pull the same stunt. You know, if you try and get yourself on social media, ask for your release publicly, make us look bad, then, well, you ain't going anywhere. We're going to keep you around for even longer than anticipated. So it doesn't look like Luke Harper is leaving WWE until at least WrestleMania next year. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing if they actually use him. Then, you know, we all win. We get to see more Luke Harper in WWE. But for him personally, I don't think he's going to be too chuffed about it. You know, I can pretty much guess what his reaction to the whole thing is.
You're going to be joking me!
Yeah, that sounds about right, actually. Now, over on Twitter, somebody slid into my DMs to ask me a question about Luke Harper. At the lowest draw, somebody who I've known for a good amount of time now, from back actually in my WWE fan art days. I didn't draw any fan art. I'm actually terrible at that kind of stuff, but I was a big supporter of everything WWE fan art, and At the Lowest Draw was one of those guys. So he has asked, he wonders, what would be my advice to Luke Harper if I was his friend or agent? He mentioned a few weeks ago around WrestleMania that he still wanted to be a world champion one day, but as much as he loves him, he's 39, had plenty of injuries lately, been booked poorly for quite a while. Do I think that he has a realistic shot at making it as a champion at a top 3 company? It was also quite interesting that he went so public considering his release wasn't granted. With AEW looming, I wonder how WWE will take it. Good question. Very long question. You make me work for this one. If I was his friend or his agent, they'd be two completely different things. If I was his friend, obviously you just want what's best for him. And I think wrestling away from the WWE would be what his preference is, what would make him happier. Regardless of where it is, whether it is AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, or whether he just goes and does his own stuff independently, whatever it is, I think ultimately, I think that's what he wants. Somewhere where he can control his own character and kind of show everybody what he can do. But if you're his agent, or if I was his agent, it'd all be about the money. I'm sure WWE are paying him a nice little packet but AEW are apparently throwing big numbers around as well, so I'd go where the money's at if I was his agent. I think that he could still be a world champion in some company out there, even if it is one of the top three. I still think he could be a world champion in WWE if he was given the right amount of time and creative energy behind him. I mean, it was only 2 years ago that he was almost in the world title picture at WrestleMania, don't forget, so he's more than capable of it. Creative, unfortunately, or those higher up anyway, didn't listen to the fans on that occasion, and maybe if that was happening now, he would have had that spot. It worked for Kofi, worked for Becky, so maybe he would have been a world champion on this occasion, but sadly he's not, and he's in the position that he is in. I don't think age matters either, being 39. AJ is in his 40s now, I think. I don't know if I'm right in saying that, but he's definitely close. He's just come off the longest reign in SmackDown history as WWE champion. Obviously, their styles are completely different, and AJ Styles is quite literally phenomenal, but I don't think age is as much a thing anymore. As long as your style can support your body, then I think any age can be disregarded in that sense. It was quite, regards to going public with his release, I think as I said, he's tried to go down the Ty Dillinger route and go public with it. It worked for him, but unfortunately on this occasion it hasn't worked for Luke Harper, so he's whether he wants it or not, he's going to be stuck with WWE now for at least the next 11 months, but we'll see. But no, that was a good question. Last week I mentioned about Alexander Wolfe potentially saying goodbye to the WWE. Speculated that he might be going down to NXT. Almost right. He's actually going to NXT UK. And we've seen screenshots of him down there now. He's part of a new faction called Imperium with the likes of Walter and Fabian Eichner. Eichner's my boy. So he should do well down there, I think. He's certainly getting a spotlight straight away, which is great. He's going from one group to another, so he already knows how to thrive in a group setting anyway, but he's not saying goodbye to WWE. He's just simply gone down to NXT UK, which I am thrilled about. Cody Rhodes' opponent for AEW's show Double or Nothing has finally been revealed, and it has been revealed as none other than his brother Dustin Rhodes, formerly Goldust of WWE. This week he retired the Goldust character in a video that he released on social media, putting the suit and putting a mask into a little chest and locking it up. And yes, I know he doesn't wear a mask. It's all paint for anybody who's going to pick me up for it. I think he was just using that as, I don't know, to heighten the sadness that was that video. It was pretty heartbreaking stuff. But it's very sad to see the end of the Goldust character. I've been such a huge fan of it, especially when he was a tag team with Booker T. Absolutely hilarious, and his stutter as well. And then he came back a few years ago, in the best shape of his life. He was wrestling as if 10 years his junior. It was fantastic to see. He overcame his demons. Great story, absolutely great story. And it's sad to see him go, but this means he can have one last hurrah, which WWE clearly weren't going to allow him to do. And he can do that in AEW now, alongside his brother, which I think, is a pretty cool thing for him to do, and for Cody as well. And I'm sure having them two together can only bolster their product. Unfortunately, WWE weren't able to give us the program that we all wanted between the two brothers. when we had Stardust versus Goldust with the botched finish at Fastlane, I think it was. Yeah, we're not going to get that again at AEW. I think we're going to get a really good match, so hopefully it turns out well. And we're going to wrap up this week's news section with a rumour that has been circulating around today. I'm very, very glad that I hopped onto Twitter just before I started recording this week, because otherwise I would have completely missed this. Now, whatever truth is in this, I don't know. But it is being reported that WWE are interested in bringing in Joey Ryan. Yep, that's right. The PG company of WWE is about to bring in the guy that has people bump for his penis. Welcome to 2019, people. This is crazy. I cannot see any truth in this whatsoever, because Joey Ryan is Joey Ryan. He does whatever he does. It works for him. I'm personally not the biggest fan of the whole penis bumping stuff, but regardless of what I think, it has its place in professional wrestling in this current climate. I don't know what is going on with this rumor. It's been reported that he's going to come in as a coach, and he's going to be working down in Orlando. Your guess is as good as mine on this one, to be completely honest. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. It just seems so odd that WWE would even be slightly interested in Joey Ryan and his penis at this point. So I take that one with a pinch of salt. Right, so that's the news and a interesting rumor. Why don't we just head over and talk about some Raw highlights?
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
As is always the case with Monday Night Raw, I watched the majority of it on fast forward, but I was still able to get a couple of highlights for you this week. And in fact, the best highlight from Raw this week we didn't actually see in the UK, because Sky Sports decided to show the Raw logo and its theme song for a good 2.5 minutes instead of letting us see Bray Wyatt's Firefly Funhouse, which was very, very sad. So when I saw that on YouTube, it very, very, very much surprised me, because we didn't get that. We got it the following night on Smackdown. So it'll be no surprise to anybody listening to this why that is my top highlight from Raw this week. Very, very unpredictable. I did not see this coming, and I don't think anybody else did. After seeing the vignettes with that creepy-ass bird thing, and then the Annabelle rip-off doll, and the haunted house as well, it was sort of leaning on stuff that we'd already seen from Bray, except now he was probably going to become like an evil ventriloquist or something like that. And when the graphic came up for the Firefly Funhouse, I was like, what the hell is going on here? And in came Bray, smiling, dressed like a kids' TV presenter, and some of the stuff he was coming out with, the kids, like the audio track they were using for that, it was all surreal stuff, but I absolutely loved it. And I've watched that video on YouTube so many times, as have a lot of other people. That thing has gone viral. It's the most watched video on WWE's YouTube channel this week. I think it's up to 2.4 million at this point. Unbelievable. Nobody saw it coming, and it's divided fans across the board. Some really dig it. Some people are interested in what becomes of it, and other people are just completely put off with it. I would say give it a chance and just see where it goes, because even if it was just this whole Funhouse thing, and it was purely an innocent thing of Bray Wyatt now embracing the lighter side of himself and all that kind of stuff. Even if it was just that as the whole gimmick, that would be fine with me. I think it'd be interesting to see it. But if you watch it, and you watch it as much as I have, you can see all the layers of it and the undertones. There's certainly something sinister lurking behind. It's as if he's now got some kind of split personality, and he's trying to curb the evil side of it within himself. And this is how he wishes to project his good side. But I'm all for it. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of it next week on Raw or SmackDown. The fact that it aired on both shows, who knows where he's going to go. But at this point, I don't really care. And in fact, actually, what I'm mostly intrigued by is, what is he going to wear to the ring? Is he going to wear that jumper and chino combination? There you go. There's food for thought right there. We also saw a new challenger to Seth Rollins' Universal Championship this week in 2 triple threats, which were pretty decent. The first triple threat with AJ, Samoa Joe, and Rey Mysterio was better than the second one with Miz, Drew McIntyre, and Baron Corbin. But both, something WWE always does right is triple threats and fatal 4-ways. I find it very, very rare that they don't produce anything good when it comes to triple threats and fatal 4-ways. And both delivered this week for me. They were both highlights, but the AJ, Samoa Joe, and Rey was the highlight I'm going with this week. And I like the finish as well. The powerbomb, and then the Styles Clash on Rey Mysterio on to Samoa Joe for AJ Styles to pick up the win. I thought that was a pretty cool finish, pretty unique. You don't really see that. We got the traditional multi-man match spot in the corner, which we always get. Some kind of assisted superplex or powerbomb. It always happens. And as soon as it happened in the first one, you were kind of like, yeah, it's going to happen in the second one. And lo and behold, it did. But no, 2 really solid triple threats that I really enjoyed. I thought from an in-ring perspective, they were the better matches of the night. Obviously, the stipulation of both triple threats was that the winner of both would face each other in the main event of Raw. So we had Baron Corbin versus AJ Styles. It was an okay match. Nothing special. Baron Corbin, he is what he is. I personally, I quite like him. He lives that whole character. He does really well with it. Gets heat when he needs to get heat. His moveset, you can see it as boring in places, but he does have those flashy signature moves, which are always good. Like the Deep Sixes, I stand by it to this day. Is one of the coolest moves in WWE, as is the End of Days as well. I love that as a finisher. But no, it seems to just plod along for me, even though AJ Styles was in there as well. But ultimately, it was a solid match to close out the show. But a surprising finish, to be honest. I was expecting and had seen on social media that this might be happening. I was expecting Baron Corbin to pick up the win. AJ Styles came up with the win in the end. And we have AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. Something which I didn't think we would get as soon as we are. So I really, in the grand scheme of things, cannot complain about that. We're getting something that we want, and we're getting it next month, in like 3 weeks. I would have liked to have seen Baron Corbin win, though, just purely because it'd be nice for Seth to kick off his title reign with a win. Baron Corbin isn't an enhancement talent. He's not somebody on the bottom of the card. If you beat him, you're going to look strong. So I think that would have been really good to kickstart his reign. But imagine beating AJ Styles in your first title defense. That would really, really put a stamp on things. So it's going to be good. It's going to be a good match, and I'm really looking forward to it. This was something that I posted on Twitter about as well, and I received a question in response to my tweet. So I'm going to use this as a platform to answer that question. At D Holland 32, otherwise known as Daniel, has asked, would you have Rollins versus Styles as a series? Not as far as a best of 7, but a 3-match series. And if so, do you think they should keep the same formula, i.e. Rollins and Styles win one apiece, and then an Iron Man match or something along those lines to finish it off? Or would I change the formula? I personally wouldn't want to see this as a series, and that's not because I'm not interested in Styles and Rollins facing off against each other. I am. This is a modern day fantasy match, modern day dream match, whatever you want to call it. But I think when you look back last year at the 2 dream fantasy matches that we had, that we didn't think we were ever going to get in WWE, we had the Nakamura feud with AJ, and we also had the Samoa Joe feud with AJ. Too many matches in both of those feuds, both underwhelmed. The Nakamura one definitely underwhelmed. The Joe one was a lot better, but still could have been on another level completely. I worry that if this became a series, that would all happen again. We'd grow tired of it. They'd do everything in one match, and then every other match just wouldn't seem as special. I kind of want this just to be a one and done thing for now. So my ideal scenario would be that Rollins retains Money in the Bank. It can be clean, completely clean, no shenanigans. It's face versus face. Have that respectful handshake at the end. Happy days, and they both move on. Every now and then they cross paths, but not in a match. Keep them away from each other in the ring. They can do promos against each other for all I care, but no matches. And then once WrestleMania season starts ramping up next year, that's when you pull the trigger once again. Even if the Universal Championship doesn't factor into it, you don't need a title for this feud to work. So if we wait until WrestleMania season next year, I think it'll still be fresh. We'll hopefully remember how good this match was at Money in the Bank, and then we can start building to what should be a fantastic WrestleMania-worthy match, and I'm sure it would be. It would be interesting, though, to see it as a series. I do love that side of things, but the thing for me is, in the modern day, you're never going to get something like the 3 Stages of Hell match with Steve Austin versus Triple H that we got in the Attitude Era. You're never going to get anything like that anymore. And I think that's probably when it was at its prime, and when you could do more with it. You could just start off with, your standard singles match, but then you can move on to like an I Quit match, last man standing, and then finish off on a cage match, Iron Man match. A series, it can go it can be a blood feud like that one was, or it can be akin to what Cesaro versus Sheamus was when they did their best of 25,000 matches or whatever it was. But it would be interesting to see, but leave this as a one and done match, revisit at WrestleMania. You can't go wrong. But that was an interesting question, so thank you for submitting that one. Also on Raw, we had the debut, air quotes, of Robert Roode, formerly known as Bobby Roode, formerly with more facial hair. Now he's just sporting a tash. It's a pretty strong tash, though, I'll give him that. But it seems to be very Rick Rude-esque. I mean, you could probably argue that there was a little bit of Rick Rude in the Bobby Roode character anyway, but now it's cranked up to 11, so we're bordering on tribute act here. But I'm more than happy that he's now a heel. That's what he thrived as in NXT. Unfortunately, he came up as a babyface, which is stupid. Absolutely killed any momentum that you would have had. But I'm certainly looking forward to where the character goes and what they do with him. And finally, it's definitely worth mentioning, because of how much I've enjoyed it over the last 3 weeks. Sami Zayn is killing it right now on Raw. I always thought he was the perfect babyface, and he was. And I never ever wanted to see him be heel. I kind of expected a career babyface from him. But this stuff that he is knocking out every single week at the moment is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. His tirades on the crowd, his over-the-top antics, during his entrances, just how he acts in the ring. It's brilliant. I cannot love this any more than I do. How it factors in to an actual feud remains to be seen, but Creative and Sami Zayn as well, they're killing it at the moment with this. So I'm sure this will continue to be a highlight on this podcast for me, and I'm just lapping up absolutely everything that Sami Zayn is throwing at me at the moment. So yeah, not a bad Raw overall, to be honest. There was some random superstar shake-up moves, which annoys me slightly, because if you're going to commit to it, just commit to it. The superstar shake-up was over 2 nights last week. Raw, SmackDown, that's it. Leave it at that. But throughout the week, it seems they've decided to do some more moves. I'll touch on that when we talk about SmackDown in a minute. But on Raw, Cesaro now is part of Raw randomly, which seemingly puts an end to the Bar, which is a real shame, because they've really become a stable of the tag team division, and to see them split up, I don't think it's the right move. Cesaro will probably flounder now in the mid-card scene, which you should not associate that with Cesaro, but that is just how it's going to play out, which is a shame. But yeah, it's been a good Raw actually this week, and it'll be interesting to hear what you guys have got to say about it. So at 5-star match, Pro Wrestling Fanatic, he says, it was different than usual, and I like that. They went outside the box with Bray and made people want more, because we're all watching Raw next week to see what's going to happen next. We have new matchups and teasers with new feuds that make you want more. Great booking. 2 fire emojis on the end of that one, so very happy with the booking. Yeah, I agree with that. And the Bray stuff was obviously a little bit mental, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that next week. The Superstar Shake-Up always shakes things up. That's why they call it the Shake-Up. So we're going to get loads of different matchups, feuds and stuff like that, so it's always something to look forward to. At Reece Evan says, Becky Lynch laughed after Rousey beat her up. She beat Rousey. She's the double champ, and then they fed her to Fox. That should have been a squash match, and Lacey knocked her out with a punch. Biggest bunch of BS I've seen by far. You know what? I was actually only thinking about this the other day. Becky Lynch should not be having 8-minute matches with Alicia Fox. She's an enhancement talent at best, which is shocking considering she's been doing this for 13 years. It should have been a squash match. It should have all been Becky Lynch offense. Like Alicia Fox, I'm surprised she's even employed by the company still, to be honest with you. So yeah, I completely agree with that. The Lacey side of things, I think you need to make Lacey look a little bit strong, and if it's using her women's right punch to do that and knocking Becky on her ass, then I'll accept it. You kind of have to dispel belief sometimes. So we'll see what happens at Money in the Bank. But it's all part of the feud, so I don't mind the Lacey stuff. But yeah, I definitely agree with the Alicia Fox side of things. At Great Love 91, Vanessa Vasquez. Sorry if I said that wrong. Raw was a swear word last night. Nothing important happened. It was a 3-hour show, and we got 15 minutes of women's wrestling at best. It's like WWE takes 1 step forward and 1,000 steps back. And where the hell were Ruby and Sarah? They split the Riott Squad, and for what? Put Ruby and Sarah out there, damn it. They're being wasted. And why the hell do the Iconics keep losing? I get it, they're heels, but they're also the champs. They shouldn't be losing like that. Makes the tag titles seem meaningless. The Riott Squad side of things, it's a fresh split. maybe they should have been featured on Raw in some capacity, or maybe they're just coming up with stuff for them. Maybe they're not even a thing anymore at all. We don't know. But I'll focus on the Iconics thing, because I think that's just the general consensus amongst most of us. It's just very odd booking. I know they are heels, like you said, and they're kind of the smarmy heels who can get away, with their little cheats. They're essentially like what Edge and Christian were when they were at the height of their stuff, and you've got to have some credibility as well to back that up. Edge and Christian did. They did all this heel stuff, but they backed it up with wins. They always look strong in the ring. They could clown around all they wanted, but in the ring, they deliver the goods. And at the moment, the Iconics aren't doing that. It's not their fault. It's obviously down to the creative and booking, but those belts haven't started off well. Sasha and Bayley's reign was derailed at WrestleMania, rightfully or wrongly. The jury's out on that one, but I expected something stronger from the Iconics, and at the moment we're not getting that. But we are, getting some fun little skits from them. The promos are still good. They're still getting a spotlight on the shows. It's just when it comes to wins and losses, then they're not getting the support that they should be getting. Especially as tag team champions. But there you go. That was your guys' thoughts on Raw this week. Oh, hang on. Whoa, back up. We have one more. At Scotty Styles, 29. He said, I thought Raw was okay. As far as in-ring wise, the Bray stuff was weird, but I'll give it a shot. Little surprised they are doing AJ versus Seth at Money in the Bank. Overall, not a terrible show. I agree. From a in-ring perspective, it was okay. It wasn't spectacular. The 2 triple threat matches were good. Cesaro, Cedric, that was all right. The AJ Baron, as I said earlier, it was a bit plodding. But okay, I'd say is the perfect word to use there. The Bray stuff, definitely weird. But it's good to see that you're willing to give it a go. But AJ, Seth, like I said earlier on as well, I'm very, very surprised that is a thing at Money in the Bank. But it is what it is, and we should actually be pretty happy that we're getting it sooner rather than later. But that is actually all done now. So that's your thoughts on Raw this week. So next week we'll do the same again. I'll put the post up on Twitter. If you've got any thoughts or questions on Raw, just comment on the post or DM me, whichever one, and have your chance to appear on the show. And now that Raw's wrapped up, we'll head over to Smackdown Live.
Welcome everyone to Smackdown Live!
It seems to be the norm to say it every week, but Smackdown Live delivered once again, which is why I enjoy it so much every single week and prefer it over SmackDown. A couple of highlights from the show. Straight away, you got to talk about how the show closed with Big O seemingly retiring that gimmick and going straight back to the prize fighter, back to the Kevin Owens shows, back to heel KO, which is what he thrives at doing, and it's great to see him back in that mindset. I didn't think it was going to happen as soon as it did. I thought they were going to probably drag this New Day stuff out for a little while. In fact, actually, I wasn't even expecting a heel turn for any time soon. He's been really, really good as a babyface since he returned. He was a highlight last week on the show for his antics, as part of that. But now he's back as a heel, and it was a great turn. I really enjoyed it. Super kick to Kofi, rips off that New Day shirt with the KO show shirt underneath it, and it's absolutely decimated Kofi. And the number one thing for me from that whole thing was I can't remember what it said word for word, but I hope your kids enjoyed themselves. And then he holding the title in his face, and now we have Kofi Kingston versus Kevin Owens at Money in the Bank. Seemingly, it's not been announced yet, but you can expect that it's going to go that way. And then it finished up with a powerbomb on the apron to Xavier Woods. Good segment overall. Absolutely enjoyed it. Really looking forward to how this all plays out going forward, as I'm sure many of us are. Bayley was also a highlight for me this week. It was nice to see. Well, it's nice to see her away from Sasha for a start. It seems like she's been just stuck at the hip with Sasha for the last year and a half or 2 years. It just seems like such a long time. Now that she's split from her, we can now get back to the Bayley that we all loved in NXT. You're getting a little bit of that, which we saw first last week, and then this week when she squared up to Charlotte, knocked the microphone out of the hand. It's a more aggressive Bayley. It's a more serious Bayley. I think you'll always have, the hugger, the playful, the big baby face side of Bayley. You're always going to have that, unless she turns heel. But it's refreshing to see her being booked this way. Not necessarily talking about the match because she lost to Charlotte, which many eyebrows were raised, including mine. I think that would have been a really good opportunity for Bayley to take it, but she's always been a good chaser. So hopefully this results in, once Becky's done with Charlotte at Money in the Bank, hopefully that means Bayley gets a shot in the title picture, and we'll go from there. But it was really, really good to see Bayley booked as she was this week, and fingers crossed she keeps up that momentum, because that's what her character needs. That's what she needs. She's been left behind a little bit in the women's division in the last year and a half, mostly just because she's been attached to Sasha, which it is what it is. But now is her time to shine, and hopefully she takes it. Now the next highlight kind of feeds into what I wanted to talk about with regards to the Superstar shake-up. Finn and Andrade resumed their little feud from Raw last week. The same Raw that Andrade was announced to be a member of as part of the Superstar shake-up. This week we saw him back on Smackdown. I understand that there's going to be backstage politics, or the superstars themselves are going to want personal preference if it comes to relationships. Obviously, we all know he's with Charlotte now. But don't move him if you're just going to move him back, because it just looks stupid. They tried to cover it up with, he wants to carry on feuding with Finn and prove himself on SmackDown. Well, he should have just stayed. If that's the case, he should have just stayed. And it's the same with Aleister Black as well. He was announced as a Raw superstar last week, and now he's back on SmackDown, presumably because of Zelina Vega and not wanting to be apart from her. It's just so odd. If you're going to do a superstar shake-up and you're going to make those moves, just stick to it. That's my gripe. That's my gripe about the whole thing. But it did mean we did get to see Finn Balor versus Andrade 2 weeks in a row. I'm never going to complain about that. They're two of my favorite guys in WWE. It wasn't as good as last week's match, but it was still very, very good. And I don't know what is going to come of it now. They're one apiece, so in WWE talk, that means we're going to have a final match probably next week. Maybe a Money in the Bank for the Intercontinental Championship. I'd look forward to that if it did happen. So watch this space. We'll see what happens next week. And last but not least, I enjoyed the Roman Reigns stuff this week. And just because it's with Shane. Shane plays a heel better than he plays a babyface. That is just a fact. Since he turned on The Miz, I've really enjoyed his run. And it's refreshing to see Shane instead of Vince in this kind of role. And we've seen the authority stuff before, where a babyface tries to take down the authority, all that kind of stuff. But this feels a little bit different, and I'm liking it so far. And we're only going to carry on seeing it up until the Money in the Bank pay-per-view anyway. So fingers crossed They keep the momentum up on it. Shane keeps delivering. Roman keeps doing his thing. Elias just keeps being Elias. That's never a bad thing. And yeah, we should be in for a treat. That was really SmackDown in a nutshell for me this week, as far as highlights go. I'm happy to say, though, that I did watch NXT today, so that means we can roll into the NXT highlights. Let's go. Two highlights for NXT this week. First one was the Street Profits against the War Raiders. Yep, they're still called the War Raiders in NXT, which is really, really good to see. No Viking experience, no Viking Raiders, no Viking Warriors, none of that crap. Just War Raiders. Oh, it really warmed my heart when I saw that. But no, they had a really fun match. A very fun match. It was actually my favourite match of the whole week, to be honest. Street Profits came straight out, made their intentions known, nearly scored an upset straight away, and then we got into the match, and it just seemed to be really good moment after really good moment, and Street Profits came up short, but when you look at it, they certainly now have a claim for those tag titles, even now or at some point in the future. Obviously, they lost, but they looked very, very strong in defeat. So I would love to see them in another program with anybody who is the tag team champions down there. War Raiders will, I assume, drop those belts soon. But it would have been really cool to see it go to the Street Profits, to be honest. They've been around a while now. They're a fun team. I like them. The crowd like them. And Montez Ford, like, what a guy! Like, he's very, very, very good at what he does. But no, it'd be really, really good to see them in a tag title feud. The second highlight, main event, Roddy Strong against Johnny Gargano. What else can I say about that? You could literally just watch those guys wrestle for hours. They could put that on NXT every single week for an entire year, and I don't think many people would complain. They'll probably be able to come up with new stuff every single time. Obviously, the finish was all muddled, as was expected. We kind of expected Adam Cole to come down and the rest of the gang, but didn't expect Matt Riddle to show up. So that was a new one. I don't really know how he really fits into the situation, unless I've completely missed something. But no, it'll be really cool to see Riddle and Gargano play off each other. A little dissension in the ranks within Undisputed Era was teased as well after Adam Cole clocked Roddy in the head, and that ultimately caused his loss. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes next week. But no, NXT was, as always, a really strong week, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with next week. And this is the joy of NXT as well, is the fact that it's only an hour long, so it doesn't take up much of my time. It paced very, very well. Probably unlike this podcast, but no, it's really well paced. It's an hour. It doesn't take me, any effort to actually watch it. But obviously, that means there's not as many highlights as there are Raw and SmackDown. So those are my two highlights for this week in NXT, and that rounds up the week's wrestling in highlight form. Really enjoyed it actually this week. I'm seeing that the ratings for Raw are the second lowest they've been in 2019, and ratings across the board are all down and all this kind of stuff. But I enjoyed this week, and I really hope that WWE can just start building some momentum. I know we're in that post-WrestleMania season where we take a bit of a lull in everything, but hopefully they can step their foot on the gas and really pump out some good stuff soon. But that was the week in wrestling in highlights. Well, I say in wrestling is WWE. But now we're going to round up the show today with some DOW recommendations. Here we go. So let's get straight to it with my first recommendation on episode 2 of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. You guys need to check out at SmarkMouth over on Twitter. He is the host of the podcast Smark and Friends. Their Twitter handle is at Smark and Friends. You can't make this up. He's been a good supporter of the podcast so far. It's really nice that he's taking the time to retweet stuff and give me some positive feedback. I've actually known him for a while, back when I used to do WWE fan art. That seems to be a trend today, actually. Back when I used to do WWE fan art stuff, he posted a picture of Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, and Ciampa was like the puppet master. It was shared by Ciampa himself, which was really cool, and I saw it, and then he got into my fan art of the week stuff. But no, he's a really cool guy. I think you should just check him out on Twitter and check out his podcast as well. His podcast is a lot of fun. So yeah, at SmarkMouth, go follow him. Second recommendation of the week is at Town Nation. Good buddy of mine over at SLTD Wrestling. Hayden, really good guy. If you're into the WWE Universe stuff in the 2K games, this is a guy that you want to start following right now. He's always streaming shows under the Town Nation banner. A lot of fun, those shows. He does all the commentary and everything. Loads of fun. And if you're interested in the 2K games as well, chances are this guy is going to have all the scoops before a lot of other people. So bear that in mind. He's also got his own Town Nation podcast as well as being a co-host on the PWW Wolfpack podcast. He's everywhere, to be honest. He's absolutely everywhere. But no, he's worth a follow, definitely worth a follow. So go check him out at Town Nation on Twitter. And if we're going with the fan art theme, then I might as well recommend one more from that little fan art family of mine. At Willy Jay Smith II. A lot of people will know him as Suicidal Assassin across Twitter and Instagram. He's a very, very talented WWE fan artist. I had the pleasure of actually interviewing him for my WWE fan art showcase that I used to do on my blog site. At some point, I will get back to doing that kind of stuff again, and chances are I might actually have him back on. I've actually talked to him as well. He's going to come on the podcast at some point in the near future so we can talk all about his art, and we can just talk wrestling because he's very, very passionate about it. He does art for many other things as well, but obviously my interest is the wrestling side of things, but all of his stuff is great. He's got a very distinct style, so if you saw any fan art being shared around, you'd know if it was his. He's also a good bloke as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting him on the podcast in the future, and it'd be really cool for you guys to hear what he has to say. So go check him out at Willy Jay Smith II on Twitter. But if that fails, you can't find that, just search for Suicidal Assassin. You'll see him on Twitter or you'll see him on Instagram. Loads of good stuff. Go check him out. And last but not least is at UTT Rob. He is genuinely one of the good guys of the wrestling community. You know, all those follow trains that you see around, I mean, they might have been around for a long, long time, but wrestling specifically, I'm pretty sure they all came from him. He was the originator as far as I'm aware of. And that was every Wednesday, every Friday. He did Tape Trending Tuesdays. So if you had, you know, any podcast channels on YouTube or, you know, anything like that, you could share within that. And, you know, he built that every single week, 3 times a week. And because of him, so many people within this wrestling community probably know each other and have probably become friends with each other. So it's something that we have Rob to thank for. I've taken up the mantle of doing follow trains as well on Wednesdays and Fridays. I try to get those out as much as I can, just to get everybody together, get people talking about wrestling, because ultimately we're a niche market, wrestling fans. We get a lot of stick from people. The whole, oh, it's fake. Yeah, well, bugger off. But at least on Twitter, within this wrestling community, we can all band together. We can all talk about wrestling, something we love, without any of the negativity that can be aimed towards us by people who just don't understand the graps. But no, give at UTT Rob a follow on Twitter. He's a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to wrestling. So if there's something you don't know, he'll probably share something you go, that's interesting. So yeah, definitely worth a follow. And that is my recommendations for the week. Before I say my goodbyes for the episode today, just got some questions from you guys, 2 of you anyway. At Shazzle_Dazzle asked, favorite wrestler currently on the roster and favorite wrestler of all time. Favorite wrestler currently on the roster, it's split between 2 for me. It's either Finn Balor or Kevin Owens. I cannot fault either of those guys. I think Finn Balor has been booked poorly outside of NXT, which is where I became such a big fan of his. So it's a shame. Obviously now he's Intercontinental Champion, so hopefully they start to build on him a little bit more, especially now he's on the Smackdown Live roster now as well. Kevin Owens is Kevin Owens. I don't really need to say any more than that. He's a great talent in the ring, so good on the mic, great character. So those 2, I would say, are my favorite on the roster at the moment. Favorite wrestler of all time is an easy one for me. It's The Rock. He may not have been the best in the ring, but character-wise, promos, charisma, everything about The Rock ticked all the boxes for me when I was a kid. And even if this is just purely based on nostalgia, he will always be my favorite wrestler of all time. I have more than enough memories of The Rock growing up than I do with other stuff in my childhood. So if that doesn't really speak volumes, I don't know what does. And of course, there was the Hollywood Rock stuff as well, and you cannot not love that. Rock concerts, the stuff with Hurricane, brilliant. But there you go. Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, favorite on the roster right now, and The Rock, my favorite wrestler of all time. And this second question, I am purely answering because he won't shut up. And it's not even wrestling based. It's based on The Office. The UK Office, by the way, the better of the 2, even though I do like the US one as well. The question comes courtesy of at CJ Marson, Chris Marson. By the way, follow him, hound the crap out of him about wrestling. He doesn't get it. Just annoy him for me. I will thank you forever. Just do it. But his question is, I was just wondering, will there ever be a boy born who can swim faster than a shark? Well, maybe, if the boy was genetically enhanced or born with gills. But there you go. There's your answer. Tim couldn't answer it in The Office, but I can answer it on this podcast. And there we have it. That is the end of the show. And what a fun little show it was today. Lots of stuff talked about. But no, that is a wrap on episode 2 of the Dits on Wrestling podcast. So we've made it to the end of episode 2. We're all on episode 3 next week, where I'll be talking about whatever happens in the week in wrestling. So it's good. I don't even know what is going to come next week. Not a clue. It's just going to come out of nowhere. Something fresh. We'll wait on it. It's definitely going to include Bray Wyatt, though, in some way, shape, or form. because of course it is. Now in the meantime, while we're waiting for episode 3 to hit the streets next Friday, you can follow me on Twitter at Dits on Wrestling. That's where I do all my stuff, so come check me out there. Also on Instagram, same handle at Dits on Wrestling. You can see some backstage stuff for the podcast, which, like I said, is just a picture of my microphone at the moment. With the podcast, make sure you go over to Apple Podcasts, type in Dits on Wrestling, there I'll be. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and if you're going to be there anyway, head down to the review section, give it 5 stars, and if you want to write some lovely words, throw those in as well. Over on Spotify as well, again, just search Dits on Wrestling. Hit the follow button and never miss a show on Spotify. And if you don't listen to podcasts through any of those two at the moment, my third and final location that this podcast will land on is YouTube, on my very own YouTube channel. Again, see, there's trends today, fan art and me. Head over to YouTube, type in Dits on Wrestling, and again, magically I will appear. So get on that. Maybe at some point down the line I'll do some videos on YouTube, but that's down the line, massively down the line. But that's everywhere that you can find me. That's everywhere that you can find the podcast. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next Friday with episode 3. Hope you all have a good weekend. See you later.